Hey, what's up, doggos? Long time no see, did you miss me? For this occasion, I even decided to snack on some anime for you. Bro! I started eating just for you because I really wanted to make sure you were happy. Tatakai! And no, this time it's not even JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but Naruto! Yeah, that very famous anime where
nothing's really happening, they're just trying to make us feel sorry with sad music. They could just show a black screen here, but to be sure, they also add sad faces.
So basically, it's crap, right? Well, my channel is crap too, so let's go. And the first episode of the anime greets us with probably the lamest opening. I mean, it's not "You are my friend," not "No hero," not "I'm Mangekyo Sharingan on you," if there's a problem that's Susanoo and you can't escape, a giant samurai who looks like a knight. Yeah, in this intro it's just some lame I wanna watch. And a couple of guys are beating up a fat dude with a log. I don't even know who he is or what he did to deserve this. Maybe it's just a chubby Arnie who was dragging his own log, made it all the way to Japan, and then bam, he gets smacked right in the head. What also gets me is why this blonde guy with the handle on his head did all the work while everyone else just stands there, damn it, watching him in the dark but smirking those bastards. Then the dark-haired one gives him a little fist bump like, nice job, you took down the big guy. And by the way, I took a pretty damn good look at all of this from the sidelines. So anyway, there are so many damn mysteries here. Let's hurry up and figure all this out. Basically, the anime starts with a story about a badass fox tearing up some village. It's coming closer. Don't let it get near the village. The village is called Konoha and the fox is called Kyubi. But even here, things aren't that simple. The thing is, the fox isn't just rampaging for no reason. You see, it's got a whole 9 tails by now. So the priest was stunned, a bit cross-eyed, the lore is falling apart. By the way, thanks Kreban for the joke about the mantas. The situation escalated, I'll be on my way. So to keep the fox from tearing everything apart, the coolest ninja in the village, don't start the attack, wait for the 4th Hokage. He takes it and seals that brat inside a belly. And as it turns out, that's Naruto himself. In the modern world, he'd get 1 million just for being the first guy with a belly dweller on his very first day, and old ladies would give up their seats for him on the bus. But in the reality of this world, that skill doesn't count for much, so the only place anyone gives up for him is next to the toilet. However, to be serious, it's actually Naruto's younger version as a character that's presented in a very interesting and compelling way. His introduction starts with the kid painting graffiti on the local president's monuments on Mount Rushmore, which gives a real headache to everyone responsible for keeping order. And when he gets caught, you'd think that a post like this would start trash talking and say how he couldn't care less about all these Hokage and more, but no, on the contrary, we find out that in reality, he deeply respects this title and actually dreams of becoming one himself someday. Overall, it's quite interesting from the perspective of the character's personality. Naruto's goal to become Hokage stems from his childhood, when the other villagers either ignored him or treated him with outright contempt. You know, in modern terms, it's like saying he'll either end up as a janitor or in jail. And for many people, such social pressure has a strong impact, actually pushing them down the wrong path. However, those who find enough strength within themselves to overcome it often set themselves goals that are absurd in their grandiosity. That's why Naruto decided not just to become a strong and respected ninja, which wouldn't be all that difficult in their world, but to become Hokage, the most respected ninja in the village. And the fact that he paints graffiti specifically on the monuments of the Hokage is on one hand a reflection of his rebellious nature. In fact, to pursue such a goal as becoming Hokage, you need to have a rebellious spirit, because society has already assigned you the role of an outcast, so even your desire to become a good and respected person is already an act of rebellion. But aside from that, Naruto's seemingly disrespectful attitude toward the symbol of the Hokage in a way actually brings him closer to his dream. In other words, people who can't even dare to dream of such a title will look at this monument with reverence and would never dare to touch it. But with his actions, Naruto shows that to him it's just a statue of a group of people and one day he'll be among them himself. So there's nothing sacred or untouchable here, nothing that can't be approached or touched. And then he gets caught by his sensei Iruka, who as we'll later find out is just as much of a weirdo. So he makes Naruto scrub all the toilets with a fork and wash the graffiti off the Hokage's face. This sucks. And you're not going home until you've scrubbed off every last drop of paint. He takes him to the local ramen shop, where a sly guy basically sells instant noodles for crazy money as if they were chocolate. Well, probably if you haven't watched Naruto, you have absolutely no idea who these ninjas are, where they live, what they do in their village, why everything looks so rural. Yet they have cameras and TVs, but at the same time their main old man chases after kids with a magical gypsy orb. Especially since as a kid I watched the National Geographic channel and was convinced that ninjas were basically just Japanese hobos who made shivs out of hose and beat up feudal lords for some reason. So let me explain. The thing is, Konoha, the village where all the action happens, is essentially a militarized facility. So there's this land of fire which is ruled by a daimyo and everything seems fine, but to protect itself, within this country there's a special village made up entirely of badass killers. Basically, from infancy they're trained in a special school to kick ass, literally that's called taijutsu in the local lingo, get high on some crazy stuff, that's it! Enough! Jinjutsu, and things like breathing fire, creating clones, or changing their appearance. That's not jutsu. Basically, there are three main branches: hand-to-hand combat, mental manipulation, and all sorts of other magical crap. They use these techniques thanks to chakra. Chakra is this blue stuff that flows through their chakra veins and makes them nuts. Then of course, they're all divided by rank. The first rank is Genin. In theory, it's the lowest rank, but as practice shows, the real losers are the Chunin, who are the next level up. Supposedly, to become a Chunin, you have to pass some insanely tough mega exam, but it always turns out that the strongest guys either don't bother with it, run off, or fail, while the Chunin themselves end up getting knocked out by 2 slaps from the neighbor's kid, Ryoka. Basically, if you think about it, it's like typical Russian education, just Japanese style. After that come the Jonin, and these guys are the real powerhouses. And at the very top is the Hokage. That's the local general who oversees everything and runs the village. Actually, there are even more nuances, but for now, let's stick with this. Basically, aside from wartime, in peacetime, the ninjas from this village essentially work as mercenaries and carry out various missions, which are divided by rank. These range from weeding gardens to destroying other nations. For money, of course. So our Naruto is exactly this kind of ninja. But he's not a Jonin, not a Chunin, and damn it, not even a Genin yet, just a freaking no-name academy student. And it looks like that's how he'll have to stay because Naruto fails the exam. And the kind sensei Iruka tells Naruto to get the hell out of here. So, basically, he's sitting there feeling down, but suddenly the second examiner, Mizuki, comes up to him. Mizuki is this guy who kind of looks like a pedophile. He calls Naruto up to the roof, away from everyone else, and then gets ready to reveal some kind of secret to him. It's a secret, but you'll find out. Alright, anyway, let's not get into all that shady stuff. So in the end, Naruto steals some forbidden scroll with the village's super techniques, which is pretty ridiculous in itself, since this scroll supposedly contains some ultra powerful forbidden jutsu, and that's why no one else is allowed to learn them. Yeah, makes total sense, right? Your whole life is about training super killers, trying to make them as strong as possible so your village is powerful, but at the same time you forbid them from learning strong techniques. Genius level logic. And on top of that, it's so brilliant to guard this scroll so well that it gets stolen by someone who can't even pass a school exam. It's like if the launch codes for nuclear bombs could be hacked by a trade school dropout who got expelled for failing. So, because of this, the whole village sets out to chase after Naruto. Hurry, go to Lord Hokage! He stole the secret scroll. The sealed scroll. No, just look at these idiots, this is insane! And this is what all your Chunin look like. Ugh, fuck. So, as it turns out, Mizuki planned all of this to frame Naruto and then take the scroll for himself. But Iruka catches onto the pedo-looking Mizuki. He rushes to Naruto's aid, touched by how hard the kid is trying, thinking what a good boy he is, but at that very moment the treacherous Mizuki throws a kunai at them. Iruka, like a true Chunin, in other words like a real idiot, sees the kunai flying straight at him while Naruto is standing off to the side, so he pushes Naruto even further away and bravely takes the hit himself, catching it right in the guts. Well, what can I say, you can really see his skill right away. And thinking that still wasn't enough, he also takes a giant shuriken with all his might right in the back, landing perfectly on the target mark on his vest. Naruto, duck quickly! No, seriously, maybe it's some kind of special symbolism, like if a ninja runs away from you like a coward or exposes his back like an idiot, then kill him right in the huge red target. Anyway, nothing gets people to open up quite like a giant shuriken in your spine, so the hand guy starts sharing a sappy story about how he used to be just like that. A screw-up, just like Naruto. That we're alike, especially when I lost my parents, you know? Honestly, who cares? And as for Naruto himself, unable to handle that kind of tenderness, he panics and runs away. Naruto. And here, if I may, I'd like to make a small remark. The thing is, this Vegas of yours is a damn cursed machine that not only glitches and lags like crazy, but also only recognizes about 1.5 video formats, and even then, only sometimes. For this video, I had to find a torrent of the episode in AV format, which wasn't easy since I needed the original audio track. So I actually found a pack that had 4 audio tracks built in, 2 Russian dubs and 1 English, not counting the original, and of course Vegas just refuses to read the Japanese track, so I have to jump through hoops just so you don't have to listen to the absolutely magnificent Russian dub. But even that isn't so simple. The thing is, the subtitles in this torrent were made by someone named Alex. I have nothing against him. He's a good guy, worked hard, wrote and translated everything, synced the timing, but there's one small catch. But I think you can see it for yourselves. I even turned on screen recording on purpose so that no one would think that I was trying to rip you off. Bitch sandal! Basically any phrase that can be translated here as fuck, pizdets, oh fucking shit, daddy is translated here as sandal. Well, what can I say? Cool. But you! Atmospheric, that's the main thing. So in Mizuka, both the hands speak, and what else? Naruto is like him because he's just as unprincipled of a dumbass. Naruto is just like me. To which Iruka objects and says that's not true, because Naruto actually resembles him and they're both principled dumbasses. Because we're alike. Naruto, touched by this statement, shouts "Sandal!" and rushes to help his sensei, showing off a technique he recently learned from the scroll. After that, we see a wonderful scene of just how humiliatingly easy it is. An academy student who couldn't even pass the exam for the lowest ranked ninja takes down a chunin who had just as easily defeated another chunin who happened to be the teacher of that very student who failed the exam. Well, you can really see the skill here. In the end, Iruka smiles and gives Naruto the shinobi headband, telling him that he passed the genin exam. They both laugh together cheerfully, and as for the hole in his spine, well, nobody really cares about that. In the next episode, Naruto is already taking a fresh photo for his ninja passport. He carefully brings it to the Hokage, but the old man's reaction is pretty much like, "Your mother ran off and lived her own life." And so, taking advantage of the gloomy atmosphere and the heavy air, the local agent 47 steps onto the scene. Hello, I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's great to see you here, and I look forward to sharing some interesting and exciting information with you. Welcome! Honestly, I don't give a damn. There are exactly 2 things that interest me in this episode. First of all, I just can't wrap my head around this crap where a little kid for some reason puts on a damn bald cap when normal people on the contrary try to get rid of baldness. Of course, I know that the Japanese specifically shaved their foreheads to wear their helmets, but this is just over the top, so my only guess is that being bald is a trademark of all badass killers. And secondly, yeah, I'll just show you everything myself right now. This hitman's name is Kanahamaru. He's the grandson of that very Hokage of yours. So by his lineage, he's a pretty cool guy. But supposedly he's not happy that everyone just sees him as a reflection of his grandfather. And when people talk to him, they don't see some deep badass personality, but just the president's grandson, someone you could get in trouble for being rude to, basically. And everything seems fine, but look at how the anime handles exposition and how it shows this moment. I'll play it for you now, just edit it a bit so YouTube doesn't ban it. Come on YouTube, don't ban me please, how much more can I take? 2 videos taken down in a row, 1 strike, have mercy on my nerves. Alright, let's watch guys.
I tripped over something. You stuck your leg out to trip me. You tripped on your own. That's the honorable grandson of the honorable 5th Hokage. Now he knows who I am. He won't dare lay a finger on me. Scared? I don't care who your grandma is. He's not like everyone else.
Well, you get it, right? I fucking love it when they reveal a theme to you through actions, facial expressions, and the emotions of the characters. But then for some damn reason, they start spelling it all out for you in plain text. That's what you call shitty exposition. Take that, you little shit, for doing that. Honestly, it's probably a bit obvious, but as a kid I wasn't exactly thrilled with the first episodes of Naruto, and the whole first arc didn't really impress me much either. Nevertheless, in this video, we're going to break down that very arc. And by the first arc, I mean the whole adventure in the Land of Waves and the fights with Zabuza. And the actual plot only really starts from the 3rd episode. In this episode, Naruto wakes up, stretches, and heads to the classroom for team assignments. The thing is, all the ninja genin are initially divided into teams of 3 for missions. These teams are put together like this: 2 guys and 1 chick with boobs, so the boys don't get bored. And you might think right now that I'm being sexist, chauvinist, a dick carrier or whatever, but later I'll give you some solid evidence. But before that, I want to point something out. This idiot eats ramen with milk. Instant noodles, for God's sake, with milk. I can't quite put it into words, but something about this whole combination just feels damn wrong to me. Well, no wonder, considering that the kid's taste buds have completely atrophied from this, and he didn't even notice that the milk was so sour it was about to start talking to him. But anyway, let's finally find out who will end up on the same friendly team as Naruto Uzumaki, whose family crest is basically the Yandex Eats logo. At the same time, we'll do a brief psychological analysis of the individuals in question. First up is Sakura Haruno. I'll say right away that for some reason Kishimoto either doesn't want to or simply can't work properly with female characters, at least within his own setting. Because all of them, without exception, regardless of rank, status, or role in the story, are portrayed as amorphous and useless individuals who just watch everything from the sidelines, admire their male counterparts, love them unrequitedly, and sometimes, just to add some drama, dramatically push themselves, fight for 5 minutes, and then fade into the background and go back to doing nothing. The only exceptions to this list might be Tsunade, Kaguya, Chio, and Tayuya. Take Sakura, for example. You'll be able to judge her role in battles a bit later, but she fits everything described above perfectly. However, it's worth adding that, as a character, Sakura is surprisingly well written and believable. She bears a striking resemblance to that annoying, arrogant, straight-A student from your school. She possesses traits like hypocrisy, which is evident in her relationships with Naruto and Sasuke. I
Thought that since we're on the same team, we'd have lunch together and get to know each other better. Since we're on the same team, we'll have lunch together and get to know each other better. How did that even cross your mind?
She keeps up the image of a well-behaved girl, even though she can and wants to rebel, but she's scared. And if anything happens, she immediately shifts the blame onto others.
That's for him being late. I wouldn't recommend it. You might regret it. Ha! I like it. Sorry, Sensei, I warned him, but he didn't listen to me. I would never do something like that.
She's completely fixated on her romantic crushes, even though those crushes are as shallow and childish as possible. Sasuke, the most popular guy in class, she just likes him because he's cool. Just like everyone else likes him too. But while other girls eventually forgot about that crush and found other people to be interested in, people who were closer to them, Sakura, on the other hand, ended up even more obsessed with her crush because she was stuck on the same team as Sasuke. But to be fair, over time her feelings did grow into something deeper. At the same time, despite what I consider to be some rather unpleasant qualities, Sakura is portrayed as a positive character, and as the story progresses, she matures. I've never liked her, but I have to admit that, from a psychological perspective, her character is very well developed. Well, yes, as you understand, the third member of the team is Sasuke Uchiha, the best performing and most handsome student at the academy. But he also has his own problems. Or no. Nani? Ore in Foxshusha, yes. Aru otoko kanarazu. Well, yeah, basically Sasuke's problem is that the guy is basically telling the story of how his entire family was killed, and the disheveled woman is thinking at that moment about how much more touching this whole story would sound if he told it without panties.
Sasuke is so angry.
Lonely. Abandoned. You can't even imagine what loneliness is. Why are you saying that? Because you're a bore. Well, that's exactly what I was talking about. Just look at what a chicken she is. She's supposedly in love with the guy, ready to give herself to him even right now on this park bench, but at the same time she doesn't even know that he's an orphan. Especially considering that the death of the Uchiha clan isn't exactly something that's easy to hide from others or hard to hear about. Anyway, the whole episode is built around introducing these 3 characters and outlining their relationships. The funniest part here is that at the end, Naruto mistakes Sakura for a transformed Sasuke and is already getting ready to smack her. But unfortunately, he suddenly gets a stomachache. What the heck is this? What the hell? After that, they meet their new sensei, Kakashi. He asks the guys what they want and what they dream about. Well, Kakashi himself doesn't really give a shit. My dream is to become the coolest Hokage. My name is... Sasuke, calm down. I will restore my clan and destroy... someone. I dream of... I didn't understand a fucking thing. Well, that's very interesting. And Sensei decides to give the guys a test. Yeah, the ninja world is set up in such a way that you work hard, study, pass the final exam, after which they tell you, congratulations, you're a Janin now, everything's great. And then some random dude just shows up and says, nope, LOL. And as it turns out, Kakashi's exam is so awesome that not a single person has ever passed it. Why is that? Well, let's figure it out. The essence of the test is simple. There's Kakashi, and there are 3 genin. Kakashi has 2 bells on his belt. The genin have to take them. Those who manage to do it pass. Those who fail go back to the academy. And as you can see, there are only 2 bells, so one of the trio is guaranteed to be eliminated. And to make things even more fun, Kakashi tricks everyone beforehand, telling them not to eat anything and to come in the morning, and as a reward for passing the test, he promises them a meal. That's basically it. And here, it's not as intense yet, but this is where what some people love about Naruto and others hate about it begins. And that's the battles. This particular one doesn't last that long, just 2 episodes, but there are some that go on for 10 or more. And honestly, Naruto can be pretty drawn out in many aspects. In the battles, in the constant explanations, flashbacks, and the characters' inner monologues. Often, every new episode starts with 5 minutes at the beginning showing us the end of the previous one. However, there are 2 reasons for Naruto's drawn-out pacing. The first is completely negative and really ruins the impression of the anime. The thing is, when I talked about JoJo, I noted that both Araki, the manga's author, and the anime directors approached the product with love and creativity. As a result, the anime itself developed some unique features and now complements the manga rather than serving as a poor imitation of it. With Naruto, it's a completely different story. The anime was originally made as something intended to make money. Because of that, there aren't any unique or interesting features here, but there is a huge amount of cost cutting. Money, 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 money. They save money on everything. On the animation, when the characters are poorly drawn, not really animated, and many scenes are just looped, like the constant running through the trees, for example. They also save on time, considering that while the anime was being made, the manga was still being drawn, so stretching things out was necessary. Either drag everything out as much as possible, buy time and make crappy fillers, or take breaks between seasons. But that means losing money and viewer interest. All of this is really bad. But Naruto also has another kind of dragging things out. It's the dragging out of battles, and here it's a completely different story. Now comes some boring crap, just like everything that came before basically. But what do you think, why is anime so popular specifically among shut-ins? The thing is, Western culture, if you can put it that way, is more extroverted, outward-facing, and approaches many situations rationally and pragmatically. Even Spider-Man in the 1990s animated series might give villains some motivation, backstory, or a complex personality, but he won't focus on that. The villain will still get beaten and thrown in jail, the hero might feel sorry for him but will act as the situation demands. And in any case, almost any such problem, or motivation in a typical Western work, boils down to a reaction to the external environment. Parker, when reflecting on duty, bases it on Uncle Ben's death and thinks rationally, building logical chains in his mind. However, in anime, it's the opposite. Asian culture is more focused on the inner world and self-reflection. Here, characters are constantly filtering everything that happens through themselves and trying to understand how this world works and what their place in it is. That's why all of this resonates so much with reserved people, introverts, and loners. Anime speaks to them in the same language, the language of a reflective, lost person who doesn't understand the world around them and tries to study it, processing everything through feelings and emotions. In this regard, Naruto is one of the most vivid and exaggerated works. Every battle in Naruto takes place on 2 levels. The first level is external, that is a direct confrontation where the guys compare their strength, techniques, intelligence, and preparedness. This aspect is executed very well in the first season, thanks to the fact that most characters use a limited set of techniques and have only a couple of trump cards up their sleeves. They are forced to analyze their opponent, think everything through as much as possible, and creatively combine the tools they have. But there is also a second level. This is the internal one. A battle of ideologies, beliefs, emotions, and worldviews of the characters. Almost every battle in Naruto devolves into flashbacks, tearful heart-to-heart conversations, and grandiose slogans. And the reason is that Naruto treats the very concept of battle not as a simple physical clash, but as a means of self-expression. When fighting, Naruto's characters primarily come to understand each other's worlds and try to prove the validity of their own viewpoints. Considering that this is an anime about children whose lives have been destined from the very beginning to be intertwined with war and killing, this approach is justified not only from the perspective of shonen genre conventions, but also in terms of how this world is structured. And in order to reveal this aspect of the battles as vividly and clearly as possible, it's simply impossible to do without lengthy conversations, explanations, and flashbacks. Some people find this silly and contrived, but I believe that this is the very essence of this anime and manga. And that's exactly why almost every character and every battle in Naruto left such a deep impression on me as a child. So, how does the fight with Kakashi actually unfold? Sakura and Sasuke, being the more or less quick-witted shinobi, immediately hide and take up a waiting position, realizing that Sensei is much stronger and more experienced than they are in open combat. However, Naruto isn't as perceptive. His cheerful personality was built on constant struggle. Since childhood, he had to face attacks head-on, had to overcome himself and force himself to fight. That's why, for him, it seems natural to try to overcome the situation with brute force. Of course, he also uses tricks. For example, he skillfully wields shadow clones, but he still lacks the experience to understand that there are walls you can't break through by sheer force. And because of this, he suffers defeat and falls into a very primitive trap. Sasuke, on the other hand, being a more rational and pragmatic guy, takes advantage of the situation and, having lain in wait, makes a sudden attempt to attack. And this too is only natural for the young Uchiha's character. Being a strong and self-confident guy, he has already encountered forces that infinitely surpass him in power. That's why he understands that in order to achieve his goal, he needs to use every opportunity. He acts more lethally and confidently than Naruto while not behaving absurdly. Unfortunately for him, Kakashi turns out to be more cunning, and he is forced to engage in an open confrontation with him where he doesn't stand a chance. However, even in hand-to-hand combat where Naruto was focused solely on how to defeat Sensei, Sasuke, on the other hand, is primarily thinking about how to grab the bell and thus achieve the goal. Well, that's just a silly example, like when I played chess as a kid. Instead of trying to checkmate and outsmart my opponent, I was like Naruto. I wanted to take out all the strong pieces, leave my opponent defenseless, and only then somehow finish the game. Sakura, on the other hand, is currently as unindependent and passive as possible. She just waits and hopes the situation will somehow resolve itself, and only reacts when it concerns Sasuke.
No! He won't catch my Sasuke!
In fact, she didn't do anything useful during this test at all. At the end, she even suggests to Uchiha that they just give up on everything and bail. Why should she care? She doesn't even know why she became a ninja in the first place. Naruto has a clear goal, Sasuke has a clear goal. But she's like a typical Russian student who goes to a random university without having any idea why they need it. But everyone else is going, so she goes too. Basically, the only thing she cares about is spending time with Sasuke, and whether they're together on missions or just sitting in the academy doesn't really matter to her anymore. But Sasuke isn't satisfied with that, so he decides to give a dramatic speech about how I am an Avenger. I remember the tears. I have to be stronger than him. What? La la la, and right in the middle of this whole tirade, he's interrupted by the alarm clock and the exam ends. By the way, that's actually hilarious because you're standing there in the middle of the arena talking about how you're going to kill everyone because you have no other choice, and then suddenly time's up and you're like, damn it, seriously, why the hell did I even say all that? And so, basically, you just go home. What screw you got? I'm going home. But anyway, now we have a moment of revelation. Who would have thought, but they grouped the guys into teams of 3. So they could work in teams of 3, surprising, right? Basically, the whole test was built around whether the guys would figure this out or not, and the 2 troublemakers were there specifically to stir up discord within the team. Kakashi explains all of this to them as clearly as possible, then gives them food and says that they can eat together and try again. Everyone except Naruto because he's an idiot. And then Sasuke, following a logical train of thought and reasoning that by feeding Naruto he would be initiating this very teamwork, gives him his portion. Seeing this, Sakura immediately decides to join in and gives her food as well. And then Kakashi tells them that by doing this, they've shown they've learned something today and they've passed the test. That's the happy ending. Now the guys are in for a fun life. Pulling weeds, catching cats, in short, a real blast. But damn, Naruto as always is pissed off again. He wants to see a tougher mission.
Our missions are absolutely, totally pointless in every way!
Alright, fine. So, this drunk old bridge builder from the land of waves, Tazuna. He's about 50 years old, has a daughter and a grandson, and his hobby is building bridges. Well, honestly, he's a good guy, but it's worth noting right away that in this particular situation, let's just say he's trying to pull a fast one. So what's the catch here? The thing is, the Land of Waves is this patch of land somewhere out on the water, a poor, miserable place that relies completely on ships. However, the shipping business on their territory has been completely monopolized by an oligarch named Gato, who is now milking this country like a cow. Tazuna, for his part, spends his mornings with other men pulling on each other's penises, and in his spare time he's building some kind of bridge. And if they manage to finish building it, Gato's monopoly will be shaken, which he isn't too happy about, so he wants to have Tazuna killed. That's actually why the old man turned to Konoha, to hire some ninja for protection. But there's one problem. As I already said, the Land of Waves is dirt poor, so they can't afford proper ninja. But Tazuna didn't lose his head and decided to just risk a couple of kids for fun, putting everyone in danger. To do this, he downplayed the rank of his mission and said everything was fine, that he just needed protection from bandits on the road. Kakashi figures all this out after taking down a couple more Chunin along the way, who were lying in ambush waiting to get taken out. Well, what can I say, the old man isn't much of a trickster. Not great, and the plan itself is kind of crappy, considering that even if they hadn't been exposed, they would have just gone to the Land of Waves and bailed, after which Tazuna would have been taken out anyway. Kakashi, as it turns out, is just too compassionate and decides to finish the mission despite being deceived. By the way, it's interesting that Tazuna first appears to the audience as some kind of damn drunk, but later on, after his lie is revealed, he doesn't show any inclination toward alcohol at all. To me, it seems like Tazuna acted that way on purpose, fearing that his lie would be uncovered, so he tried to play the fool and avoid serious conversations with the representatives from Konoha. Be that as it may, let's get back to the ambush I mentioned earlier. Here are these two loser Chunin from the village hidden in the mist. All they managed to do was scare Naruto and get punched in the face. Gato, who hired them, is extremely unhappy with how things turned out, so he goes to see their boss. The badass demon with the chiseled torso and giant cleaver, Zabuza Momochi, who is also known as the demon of the hidden mist. The demon admits, yeah, they messed up, so true to his nasty nature, he decides to pull a dirty trick on the guys. So what does that look like? Basically, Naruto and the gang arrive on the island, they're all walking along calmly, when suddenly Naruto loses it, he starts yelling, freaking out, and tries to attack an innocent rabbit, while Asuma says he's being an idiot.
Are you out of your mind?
But he notes to himself that it's summer outside and yet the rabbit is damn it white. Which means there's something fishy going on here, something smells off. And right at that moment, a huge cleaver comes flying at them out of nowhere, damn it, from an ambush.
Watch out! Zabuza Momochi from the village hidden in the mist, a rogue shinobi. Kakashi from the Sharingan.
Zabuza starts intimidating the guys like, I've killed people, you haven't, you're only 13, I've seen life. In short, an idiot. But what's remarkable is that Kakashi actually falls for all this for some reason and comes up with some brilliant ideas. Like hiding in the water from a ninja whose 90% of techniques are based on using water. The outcome is somewhat predictable. But the way Sasuke and Naruto get out of this situation and free Kakashi is actually quite noteworthy. Basically, Zabuza is limited in his movements since he has to keep Kakashi trapped in his water prison. However, he still needs to kill Tazuna, who is being protected by Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. Nevertheless, the difference in their strength is so great that for Eyebrowless to solve this problem...
Eyebrowless freak?
Why are you getting offended? He just creates a single clone and the kids can hardly do anything against it. And then... Actually, take a look at this. These are like the character stats from an official source. From them, you can see that Naruto isn't actually very smart. But check out the plan he comes up with. First, he creates clones to attack Zabuza and distract him. At that moment, he himself transforms into a giant shuriken, which one of the clones picks up and throws at Sasuke, disguised as an ordinary shuriken. Sasuke, instantly understanding what Naruto wants from him, pulls out his own shuriken, throwing his shuriken first and then Naruto's shuriken after it, so that the first shuriken hides the second one behind it. They aren't aiming at Zabuza's clone because the clone doesn't matter. Even if the clone is destroyed, Zabuza will just make another one, so the shuriken is aimed at the original. Of course, Zabuza easily catches it, notices the second shuriken, dodges that one as well, and already. Beta Tulsi. After that, the last shuriken behind his back turns back into Naruto and he throws a kunai at him, forcing Zabuza to release Kakashi from his technique. Sakura didn't take part in this whole plan, yeah? Well, she was just protecting Tazuna, that's all. And it's after fights like these that I realized just how cool Naruto can be. I mean, I genuinely felt all those emotions when the guys managed to trick Zabuza. But you know how you can easily and simply ruin all of that? Like this, damn it.
The clone doubles didn't help!
While he was thinking, I turned into a phantom shuriken. That threw him off, that's a fact. I turned one of my clones into a shuriken. Sasuke immediately realized it was me. He turned so it wouldn't be visible and pulled out his own shuriken.
Yeah, damn it, the next episode starts with fucking Naruto just spending several minutes step by step explaining everything he just did. I can literally feel everything inside me just sinking at that moment. The whole cool plan I just watched, the one I had to piece together in my head, is now just being chewed up and spoon-fed to us just to fill a few more minutes of screen time. And that's when I realized the anime thinks I'm an idiot. To be fair, it's not rock bottom, but it's still fucking upsetting. Nevertheless, there are still two interesting moments in this fight. First, it's how the fear of rookie ninjas facing their first deadly battle is portrayed. In other words, everything they've learned in theory they weren't ready to face in practice yet, which is why they freeze up and get scared. This moment is shown really well. Yes, a bit straightforward, but in Naruto absolutely everything is shown. It's portrayed in a straightforward way, just like in most shonen series. Nevertheless, it has a really cool impact on the development and growth of the characters. So to speak, Kishimoto, my respect. The second point worth mentioning is the progress of Naruto and Sasuke. Both of them have improved in terms of teamwork and now they can interact effectively on the battlefield. And Naruto, having realized earlier that not every situation can be solved by brute force, started to think more clearly and focus on what's important. That is, before, Naruto would have just tried to attack Zabuza hoping to defeat him. But this Naruto no longer harbored such illusions and immediately focused on freeing Kakashi, thereby putting Zabuza in checkmate. In short, after that it's Kakashi himself who starts to torment the fatty. Like he has this badass eye called the Sharingan. Boo! What, did you crap your pants? Supposedly this thing lets you completely read and copy your opponent's movements and techniques. Ushisar une en tori ushi uma torine toraimu torami ushi itsujimi en itsujine. Ushisar une en tori ushi uma torine toriimu torami ushi itsujimi and itsuzene. And besides, it's a legacy of the Uchiha clan, meaning Sasuke's family, so the question of where Sidor stole it from is pretty relevant. Anyway, Zabuza was so freaked out by this feature that he almost ended up taking himself out.
Can't keep up!
In the end, he decides to sit down under a tree, but then some dude shows up and goes, "Let's go!" So basically he throws 2 senbon needles into his neck, after which Kakashi declares the guy dead. The dude supposedly turns out to be one of the special ninjas from the Village of the Mist, whose job is to track down rogue shinobi and eliminate them to keep their village's techniques secret. He grabs the corpse by the armpits, walks away, and then bam, surprise.
My neck hurts, you sadist. If you'd hit me somewhere else, you could have actually strangled me. That's why I love you, though. I knew it, you're into boys, you big oaf.
Yeah, turns out it was all just another trick. Damn, fucking ninjas, always pulling tricks. Supposedly the ninja government is just his buddy with the armpit hack, who deliberately threw needles at him in such a way as to fake his death and whisk him away right under the enemy's noses. What's interesting is that Kakashi saw through this plan right away but didn't do anything. Well, or rather how? There are 2 possibilities here. Either Kakashi actually figured it out only after the enemies had already left, or he understood everything right away, but realizing he had no strength left, decided to play along to avoid continuing the fight. Personally, I lean toward the second option. Anyway, in the next episodes, Kakashi sets up a training session for his team. According to the rules of the training, they have to climb a tree without using their hands, relying solely on controlling the chakra in their feet. Kind of like in JoJo, right? During this time, we also get a little closer look at Tazuna's family, and especially his grandson Inari. Very interesting. And at the end, when all the team members have completed the training, Zabuza finally regains consciousness and the second round of the fight begins. But since we've already seen Zabuza's fight, this time all the attention is focused on his assistant Haku. Well, let's take a look at their awesome fight with Skill Chika. Go ahead. Yes. Sakura, stand next to Tazuna-san and don't leave his side. And we'll leave him for Sasuke. Cool, right? Meanwhile, Garo's bandits attack Tazuna's house. And I thought that when I sat down to rewatch the anime now, after several years as a grown-up, I would discover so many new facets in it and see everything from a whole new perspective. But in reality, what interests me now is why the toilet in Tazuna's house is so huge that even Inari could dive into it head first. So the bandits break down the door to the house, knock out Manka, and are about to beat up Inari when suddenly Naruto shows up. Well, he takes out the bandits in style, and then he and the kid have a good laugh about the whole situation, while his grandpa is getting killed over there. But what's way more interesting is what's going on with Sasuke. And here Haku has already unleashed his signature technique. Check it out, these are the ice demonic mirrors. Haku is like a mutant. They call people like him here. I don't remember, and honestly, who cares? Anyway, he has a special innate ability to control ice. Because of this ability, he ended up an orphan. Because he killed his own dad, who tried to kill him first. It's a long story, basically. After that, Zabuza took him in. This particular technique allows Haku to create a dome of mirrors like this. He goes inside it and moves between the mirrors at lightning speed, landing blows. Honestly, in my opinion, it's a pretty damn weird technique. But it works on Sasuke, and on Naruto too for that matter. So while Haku is beating up the boys, Kakashi is just standing there chatting with Zabuza. And this is where the plot gets really dumb. Because look, Kakashi can't just leave Zabuza and run to help Naruto and Sasuke since Zabuza would kill Tazuna. Shadow clones won't help here either. So what should you do in this situation if a fight is already unavoidable? Well, obviously you should provoke the fight and try to finish it as quickly as possible to help the others, especially since Kakashi is more than capable of doing that. But no, instead he just stands there chatting with the enemy until Sasuke. And then he takes down Zabuza in a couple of minutes, just like that. Teacher of the year, seriously. In reality, Sasuke and Naruto only survived because Haku didn't want to kill them and deliberately made all his attacks non-lethal. But also, during all of this, the fox inside Naruto went wild and with just a regular smack knocked Haku out and shattered all his mirrors. And that's basically how the second round of this fight ends. In the end, Haku sacrifices his life to stop Kakashi's attack and save Zabuza, and then Gato appears on the scene. I also have something to say about Gato. First of all, he's probably the only guy in the whole anime who actually, damn it, wears closed shoes. Seriously, a sock and a sandal. I can't stand open-toed shoes, who needs that crap? And secondly, Gato, by his own example, proves what I said earlier about self-reflection in anime. The thing is, absolutely every character in Naruto has their own backstory, motivation and beliefs. That's why it doesn't matter how many people they've killed, whether they're good or bad, or what role they play in the plot, the author gives each of them enough attention to reveal both sides of their character. So even the most evil villain here has some kind of justification. And it's clear that the author himself doesn't consider them to be evil incarnate. As far as I remember, there are exactly 2 exceptions. Those are Gato and Mizuki. These 2 guys are portrayed with maximum contempt and are subsequently punished by the plot. And that's because they don't have any kind of grand goal, even from their own perspective. Mizuki simply wants power for the sake of authority, and Gato wants money, also for the sake of power. They don't have any deep emotional struggles behind their actions. That's why Gato gets taken out in the most satisfying way, along with Zabuza, who at that very moment is no longer portrayed as a purely evil character, but rather as a grey one. After all, a lot of people really like Zabuza. Although in my opinion, he's kind of an asshole. I mean, seriously, he was drawn as this ultra cool guy who, as a baby, killed 100 or so kids and wanted to kill their local cage. But in reality, what did Zabuza's 2 fights in these episodes actually look like? So he shows up, swings his sword around, creates a couple of clones, then traps Kakashi only because Kakashi was being stupid. Shows off that he's stronger than a bunch of 13-year-old kids because he's fought, damn it. He gets beaten by them, uses some kind of little dragon, then gets scared of the Sharingan and loses the fight. After that, he attacks a second time, just uses a really thick mist and tries to cut down his enemies, but gets beaten again because he had no idea about summoning techniques at all. Honestly, it looks pretty pathetic. Although the scene where he, alone and without the use of his arms, holds a kunai in his teeth and attacks a crowd of mercenaries, that actually looks really cool. But on the other hand, just look at this crowd of idiots. What even is this? Some clerk with a sword, a kid with a ladle on his head, and for fuck's sake, an old man. The remnants of this elite guard were finished off by little Inari, who brought the whole village with him, but not before he thoughtfully fixed the door at his house. The idiot bails, the bridge gets finished up pretty well, and Zabuza is buried next to Haku. Basically, that's where the story in the Land of Waves ends, and what can I say about it? Back in the day, when I was a kid, I didn't like the first Naruto arc. It seemed kind of weird, rushed, and lacking in compelling characters to me. Because it all started not with the most interesting intro episode, and then I was watching some little brat learn to transform into a body positive chick. Then I watched the kid run off to the bathroom. Then I saw them fighting by rote with some scaredy cat. On the one hand I was kind of interested, but on the other hand I honestly just didn't care. Even though now I can see all the positives of these episodes. But those positives only make sense together with what happens later on. Still, I guess this is just my subjective take, since I know a lot of people like these episodes and I myself admit they're not bad. However, it was actually the Chunin exam arc that made me fall in love with Naruto, and that's what we'll talk about in the next video. For now, I just want to ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, drop a comment and all that stuff, at least while the video is still up. And if you have the opportunity, guys, please support me financially during these easy and tough times, either through the donation alert with a Sberbank card or on Patreon. I'll be grateful forever, links are in the description. Well, that's all for today. See you, doggos!